So you've written a program, downloaded it to your robot, and started it running. And your robot's not doing what you think it should. The point of this video is to remind you of the items on our checklist to help you figure out why you might find yourself in this situation. The first thing worth checking is to make sure you've connected all your motors into the correct ports and all your sensors into the correct ports. Usually people don't disconnect their motors much after building a robot, but people do add and remove sensors more often. For your sensors in particular, be sure to look at your blocks and confirm they're plugged in correctly. So for example, I've got a switch block here, and this switch block is switching on my touch sensor, and up here you can see my touch sensor should be plugged into port 1. And if I've plugged the touch sensor into a different port, this switch block isn't going to work. Another essential thing to check is that you've downloaded the most up-to-date version of your project to your EV3. Remember that the software only downloads the project you're currently looking at to your EV3 when you press the download button. If your code isn't working, then download it again. Another thing to confirm is that you're actually running the correct project and program. Check the name of the project and of the program on your computer screen and make sure that they match the names on your EV3 screen, keeping in mind that the EV3 can only display the first several letters of the names. We covered these problems in more detail in the potential pitfalls lessons. By the way, I've occasionally given a program the same name as a sound or image file. For example, this screenshot shows a program that I wrote called Snoring that uses the sound block file snoring on the brick. You can see that to the left of my program, there's a little triangle icon indicating play, and to the left of my sound file, there's a little sound icon. We covered that issue in more detail in the More About the EV3 Brick lesson. It's also quite common for people to have problems when they try to display multiple images in a program, or when they want to end a program with an image on the screen. If you find that images seem to be missing when you run your program, it may be the case that the images are being displayed, but they're being displayed and then cleared away so quickly that you don't actually have a chance to see them. For a full explanation of what's happening, watch the More Pitfalls lesson again. Another reason your program may not work is due to blocks that aren't correctly placed. This is really difficult to do when you're trying to do it intentionally. Suppose I want to put another sound block into this top part of the switch. The switch, there you go. If I put it right there and drop it, well, it's pretty obvious it dropped down there, but it's as I said, it's hard to do this intentionally. But it can almost look as though your block is placed when in fact it's not. It's not going to happen to you very often, but do make sure that all of your blocks are in fact placed where you want them to be placed. Of course, it's also possible that you actually have an error in the way that you wrote your program. One really good way to check for errors is to try and talk through your program, block by block, with someone else. Remember back to the peanut butter and jelly example from week 1. Try your best to specify what each block does as slowly and carefully as possible in very simple language, as though the person you're explaining it to is a robot with no common sense who takes everything very literally and needs to have everything specified completely. If your program uses a loop, one common error for new programmers is that they forget that the loop only tests whether to leave or not once it's finished everything inside of the loop. So if you're using a sensor or a timer on a loop, things can appear to behave oddly. You may want to go back and watch the videos on loops and loops that use sensors. During the recording of this class, we also discovered a bug in the software, which means that loops that depend on time sometimes loop once more than they should. We've reported this to Lego, but it may be some time before they manage to fix it. And then, occasionally, my only diagnosis for a program that doesn't work is sunspots. As in, really, this looks totally right, but it's not working, and my only explanation is something to do with solar radiation. Usually my solution for a case of sunspots is to start a new program and write it again from scratch. Seriously, start a brand new empty program on your computer. Print out your old program or display it on a second computer while you re-enter it as a new program. 99% of the time, that'll fix it. Why does that work? Well, when everything looks perfect but it's not, I think it's often the case that there's a problem with a block not being correctly placed. And while it looks fine, it's really not fine. So if you just rewrite that same program from scratch, it sometimes works. Not a satisfying solution by any means, but certainly worth trying. And again, let me remind you, one of the nice things about working with Lego is that you can call their tech support people. So if none of this has helped you, they may be able to help you figure out what's up.